Hello and welcome to the demonstrational video on the 2011 Ixeo IT664. I'll walk you around the outside and then we'll move on to the inside. So the main controls for the cab are under the bonnet. I'll just show you where the bonnet catch is, just here. These side windows, just while we're here, do have blinds on, and the magnetic Concertina blinds, as on that window there. I'll show you those when we go around to the other side. So the bonnet catch is just here. And then underneath the bonnet we have the washer fluid, brake fluid, coolant, oil fill, dipstick just down there with the yellow on it. If you ever need to jump start this vehicle, the positive terminal is there, so that's where you put your red positive clamp onto, and then the negative or earth is here, so that's the black. So that's the controls under the bonnet. I'll work my way around this methodically and then we don't miss anything. So these Concertina blinds, so these would be the blackout blinds. They press stud on this side here, and then this side is a magnetic tab here that just attaches to the door frame. Now there's three of those, so you've got one for the opposite window, that side, and then one that goes across the windscreen. So they're all together in this bag, which I'll put underneath the bed in the storage compartment. And you can see here on the inside you've got press studs for the one that goes across the windscreen. It also has come from the previous owner with silver screens, so they're thermal screens that can go on the outside of the motorhome, and they clip across the windscreen, and the straps that go around the wing mirrors to keep those in position. So for cold weather, and also to fully black out the windscreen and the side windows, that's the silver screens. So working on around the vehicle then, this has got the data sheet here, or the chassis plate showing the weights. It's got the chassis number on there as well, so if you're wondering what that is. So as we work along here now, we've got the vents for the fridge next to the habitation door, the main habitation door. What these do here, so I'm referring to these things, it draws cool air in at the bottom and expels warm air at the top, so it helps ventilate the fridge. You can get winter covers for those, so that you've not got a draft coming through these vented slots here, but for summer use not required, because it will need to vent. The next one along is the vent for the boiler. So whenever the boiler is switched on, you'll get the gas exhaust coming through from here. In cold weather it'll come up as steam, so don't worry about it. It's just that that's where the boiler exhausts. Underneath here we've got the storage that's underneath the bed. That incorporates the drain for the boiler as well as the plumbing system. Now draining down the motorhome is really important. The drain for the boiler, so this is the hot water boiler, is this black unit here. Okay, it's marked up Truma on the side there. That black diamond shaped tab on the top is now in the closed position, so that will retain all the water within the boiler. To drain that water out of the boiler, turn the diamond shaped tab that way, and that will drain all the water from the boiler. It's also thermostatic, so if the temperature reaches I think it's 6 degrees, it will drain all the water out of the boiler. Also, if the battery becomes discharged, it will also drain the water from the boiler to protect the pipework and the boiler from freezing conditions. So if the temperature reaches below zero and water is left in the boiler and freezes, it will expand and it will crack all the pipework that you can see here and damage the boiler and the pipework. So to close the boiler vent off, turn the diamond shape tab around so it's perpendicular to the block here. Also, there's a little blue button, which I don't know whether you can see, just on the front there, there you go, that needs to be pressed in order for the water shut off to be closed. So you've got to turn the diamond shaped dial there perpendicular, and also press that little blue button in as well. There's a further drain down for the pipe work, for any excess water in the pipe work, and it's that yellow nozzle there. You can probably see this a bit better from the inside underneath the bed when you lift the bed up, but if you want to access it from outside, that is closed. If you lift it up like that, that is open, so that will drain all the water from the pipes, and it'll pour out onto the bottom underneath the motorhome. So that is open. When it's horizontal like that, either way, pointing towards me or away, that is closed. So that's the drain down procedure for the hot water boiler. Just while we're in here, there's this flexible hose which I'm going to show you to where we drain down the wastewater. That connects onto the pipe, which I'm going to show you in a second. In there we've got a winder for the awning. The awning is wound out via this hooked winder here, and you simply hook the winder into the end there. Oops. Hook that into there, and then wind this handle, and that draws the awning out, which has got legs on it that come out of this front box section here. There is a separate video on our YouTube channel that shows you how to operate awnings. I'll try and put the link for that in the description for this demonstrational video. So that's where the winder is for the awning. There's a ladder in there for the drop down bed as well, which I'll put back in. I'm just taking that out for ease of demo today. As we work our way around the outside, you've got the camera there, which is the reversing camera, so just make sure that's kept clean and dry. If it's wet, then you will get a distorted vision through that. The next locker down here is the toilet cassette locker. Just one sec. Okay, so that's a lockable locker. The toilet waste gathers into this cassette here, and there's an indication inside to tell you when that's full. So to empty this, you lift up that little tab there and pull this cassette out. So this cassette then would be full of toilet waste. To empty that, you slide that across the funnel, unscrew the cap from the end, and pour away the waste. So you turn it this way and pour the waste away like so. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air in as the liquid is coming out of that side, and that stops it from splashing and glugging. This requires the chemical, so the toilet chemical goes into this once you've emptied it. So once you've emptied it, pour a bit of water into it, and then swill it out, and then empty it again, and it's completely empty and clean. And then you need to put the chemical into it. You do so by sliding this back here, slide that back, open this valve here, and it allows access through into the toilet cassette itself. So put a little bit of water in the bottom and the desired amount of chemical, and then the toilet cassette's ready to use again. So you just close up the valve, slide the cover back on, close the funnel, and then it's ready to insert back into its slot. It does have wheels on it so that it can be carried over to the disposal point. You can see the wheels there, and an extendable handle on the top so that you can carry it over to the disposal point like so. So when it's ready to go back in, put the handle back in and insert the cassette back into its carrier there. So with the cassette back in, just make sure that handle clicks back into position. As I say, you've got to have this valve facing that way because it goes onto a corresponding mechanism on the inside. So moving on from that toilet cassette, we have the waste tank drain down point. So everything that goes down the sink and down the shower ends up in a tank underneath the motorhome, and it's just on this side here, so we're on the passenger side here. And to empty that, it is a tap which is just there, so that'll be closed if I turn it, anti-clockwise, I think. There we go. So that's the drain for the grey waste or wastewater, and that flexible hose goes onto the end of this tap, which I showed you that was stored underneath the bed. Moving on from there, we have the mains cable. So that's where the mains cable goes into the motorhome. That's what's going to give you your mains supply into the vehicle. It'll charge your leisure battery, and you can use mains appliances once you're plugged in via that cassette there. So next to that we have the gas locker. So in here it'll take two 6-kilogram propane bottles. It has an inline regulator, so you don't need a regulator on top of the bottles. That's the regulator just there, and there is a flexible hose that comes off the end of this, and then that goes onto your gas bottles themselves, which are housed in these anchor points here. The gas is then switched on top of the bottle itself, so they've got a tap. Imagine there's a bottle here, the tap will be about here on top of the bottle, and that's how you switch on and off the gas supply to the motorhome. But there is a flexible hose that's required to plumb that onto the top of the gas bottle. Moving on from that, we have the fresh water fill point. So this is where you fill up the vehicle with fresh water. So it is lockable, but just unscrew it, put a hose pipe into there and fill it until it pours out of the side of the motorhome, then you know it's full. There is a drain down point for this. The same principle applies to the freshwater tankers with the boiler. It must be drained down for winter. If water is left in the tank and it freezes, it'll expand and you're in danger of damaging the tank and all the pipe work. But the drain for that is on the inside of the motorhome. So we'll move on to the inside and I'll show you the controls therein. Okay, so we're inside the motorhome now, and the first thing to note is the step control, which is this button here, which is near the door. So you can see there, up and down control for the step. Then you've got various light switches just above that, which are these here. In order to get everything operational on the motorhome, you must have the 12 volt switched on, which is on this control panel here. So to switch that on, you press the 12 volt button here, and you can see that the lights have come on. So you won't get anything functioning without that 12 volt switched on. To switch the 12 volt off, it's the button next to it. These are the controls or indication as to your battery condition. So the front one here is your engine battery. So you press that, the needle moves over. We're showing 12 and a quarter volts. The rear one is the leisure battery. So that's the battery that deals with the rest of the motorhome. So again, 12 volts, but we've got everything switched on, so not quite as powerful. The alarm button here will, the alarm indicator there will tell you if your battery is becoming dangerously low or the water needs emptying, etc. The next one along from that is the that will light up when you're connected to mains electric. So that's an indication to tell you that you know that the mains supply is coming in and is functioning. These are your water tanks. So that is your fresh water. The top one is your fresh water. There's a bit of water in that by the looks of it. And then that is your waste water. Again, there was some waste coming out when we opened up the waste pipe. The next one along from that, the button there is your water pump. So the way this works is when you first put water in the motorhome, you need to pump that through all the pipe work and push all the air out of the pipe work from the water tank, and then eventually it'll come out your tap. So you switch the pump on once you've filled up with water, come over to your taps, switch the tap on the cold side. So the pump will only run when you open up the tap. Now it won't, oh, there we go, we've got a pure flow of water there. So what you need to do is ensure that you've got a pure flow of water coming out of your tap. What that does is it as I said, it pushes the air out of the pipe work. It's more important on the hot side, because what that then does is fill up the water boiler, which is 10 litres. So you've got 10-litre tank which is being heated, which we'll come to in a second. But so what you need to do is switch it over to the hot side and wait until you've got water coming out of this tap. If you don't do that, you fill it, you're basically heating the boiler with just air in it. So you need to purge the water through and push all the air out. So that's the first thing to do when you first fill up with water. We've got you the new sink cover. Right, let's just go. So we've got to the front of the motorhome here. Where we filled the fresh water up was just outside here, just underneath that window. So the fresh water tank is here. To drain that down, you take these cushions off. Underneath there, it'll expose the tank, and it's got a bit of a lid on it. I'll just do that now. Okay, so I've taken the cushions off. This uses the more modern system actually of so this is your freshwater tank. That's an inspection hatch really, so you can see down into the tank. To drain it down, you don't need to take that off. Leave that on, but make sure it's fully tightened up, because otherwise when you fill it with water, water can seep out the top here. To drain the tank down, you turn this knob here fully anti-clockwise until it gets tight. Don't overdo it, and just wait until it gets tight. To close the freshwater drain down off, turn it clockwise again until it's tight. And again, the reason for draining this down is to get rid of the water in freezing conditions. If water's left in there and it freezes, it'll damage the tank and the pipework. Just while we're at the front of the motorhome, to spin the seats round, it's just this little tab here. So you just pull that way, and that'll allow you to spin the captain's seats. So moving on to the rear of the motorhome, we have the fridge. Okay, so to switch the fridge on, you press this button in here and keep your finger on it, and then you're turning this wheel to go through the various functions. Okay, so let's go back to the main menu. So you've got a number of things here. So if you press and go into this menu here, let's just scroll through. So you've got a temperature function. So if it's really warm outside, you want the fridge to work a bit harder. If it's freezing cold already, then just turn it down, because otherwise it'll freeze up. So we'll come out of that and we'll go into the power selection. So you can select it so that it'll automatically select the most relevant power source. If you do that, it'll look for electric first, and then it'll try and find gas, and then it'll try and find 12 volts. So 12 volt is this button here. It will only work when the engine is running, and it'll only sort of keep it cold. It won't get cold. It's really only for transit cooling. The next one down is gas. If you're off grid and not connected to mains, then obviously use that function. And the next one along is electric. If I were you, I'd just leave it in auto, because the fridge does the work then and selects the most relevant power source. To come out of any of these menus, you just press the back button like that, and that's the fridge operational. So it will come up with a warning if you're not connected to mains electric and also you've run out of gas. It will warn you that the fridge isn't operating. To open the fridge, it's this catch here. It is worth leaving this fridge open. If it's not being used, then leave the fridge open, because otherwise you'll get stagnant air building up in there and it starts to give a smell off. You can actually open this both sides, which is a nice function. And then to switch the fridge off, you keep your finger pressed on the centre button. Microwave. Pretty straightforward. The instructions are in the manual pack, which is just there. So there's not much to say about that really. It's just a straightforward microwave. The bed, you can lift this up and gain access to your storage from inside, like so. So that's just access to the underfloor bed, the underfloor bed storage that we looked at, that's also accessible from outside. The boiler controls are on the end of this bed here. Just stick this back down. So the way these work is it'll only work on gas. So the two upper positions are water only. So you've got 60 degrees water, 40 degrees water, 60 degrees water. In the middle, it's off. The one down from that is heating of the motorhome, and then you control the thermostat via this knob here. The next one down from that is heating and hot water at 60 degrees. So if you consider the two bottom ones winter, the two upper ones summer, where you've just got hot water. So the two lower ones are heating and hot water, heating only, off, hot water only, hot water at 60 degrees only. Moving on to the bathroom. Okay, so the main function here, the toilet. So to use the toilet, lift up the seat. This valve here is directly connected to that cassette function which I showed you outside, which opens and closes this valve here. So the way to do it, lift the seat, open the valve, use the toilet, press the flush button which comes off the fresh water tank, and then close this back up. Make sure it's closed back up when you're travelling, otherwise the toilet waste will be slushing around in the bottom, which you don't want. This indication here will tell you when the cassette's full, but you can actually see down there how full that is. We've provided a puncture repair kit there, should you be unlucky enough to get a puncture. That's that kit, if you're wondering what that was. The bed on the over the dinette area is simply operated by pressing this button in here and then drawing the bed down. So that's the bed drawn down. We've put new mechanisms on the side of this particular model, so they're good and steady. Just make sure that it clicks back into position when you bring the bed back up, so that it clicks into position, so you've got to then press the button to release it. So that concludes the demonstrational video. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those before collection, or if not, on the day of collection. And we look forward to seeing you on the happy day that you collect your new Burstner motorhome.